My name is Lawrence Schafer, and I am a Senior Chief Electronic Technician. I'm from Michigan, but I had finished my education more or less, and I had moved to San Francisco. And I was working in San Francisco. I had been out there about 6 months. And a couple weeks before Christmas of 1961, I got a telephone from my mother from Michigan. She said, "Larry, I just came back from the post office. I put your Christmas gift in the mail, and I came home and you have a pre-induction physical notice." Wow. I didn't know my number, draft number, whatever. They had numbers then. I didn't know what it was. But I was smart enough to figure out that pre-induction meant something not good was coming. So I took a day off of work and I went to the federal buildings in San Francisco and visited with all the recruiters. And a long story short, when I got to the Navy recruiter, they had pictures of Poseidon missiles and submarines and aircraft carriers and everything, you know, and I said, I can learn something here. I don't want to work in a gun crew. So I said, okay, I'm going to join the Navy, and I did join the Navy, and I was sent to boot camp in San Diego. And after boot camp and testing that I went through there, I was selected for electronic training, which is right homing in on what I wanted to do. And they sent me after boot camp for 1 year of school at an electronic technician A school in Treasure Island, San Francisco Bay. Cool. After I completed that, I was sent to submarine school, and I went through that, and then I went to my first submarine, USS Bang. I was new on board. I got a chance to mess cook and meet the crew and do a lot of things. The submarine had just come back from a very important mission in the North Atlantic. And I was not part of that. But we did go on several interesting cruises, and I had a good petty officer leading me. I was electronic technician, and I worked on radar and other things that were important to me, and important to the mission of the ship. But after that, I was sent to submarine school to become an instructor. So I went to instructor training, and then I became familiar with new electronic equipment that was being put on board. And I went through that, and I taught that for about 3 years at submarine school to other people that were coming in. Everything is going pretty well, and then I was sent from submarine school. I went to Jack in Quincy, Mass. Kittery, Maine. I was actually sent to Quincy. They said, she's not here, she's in Kittery. So she was just completing construction, went on USS Jack for about 1.5 years, and subsequently after that tour, I went to Narwhal, a nuclear submarine. And I was part of the front-end electronic technician on that. We called you were either a nuke or a nose coner. I was a nose coner, and that was I was at that time I was a chief petty officer. I made chief in 7 years and 9 months, which was really pretty good. But I went aboard Narwhal, and Narwhal was an exciting ship, one of a kind, did really important stuff, and it was a wonderful tour. So what's happening now, I came in the Navy, I went to school, I got trained, went to submarine school, went to 3 different submarines, and I'm finding out that I really like what I'm doing. And while I was on Narwhal, I was finishing that tour up, and we were in New London, and there used to be a Navy laboratory in New London called the Underwater Sound Lab. And they had a crew of about 25 sailors over there that worked at the laboratory with engineers developing new equipment and contracting and testing it. And I wanted that job, but the fella that had it, that I would have been eligible for, had put in for a extension. And one day I was at an office on the base in Groton. A friend of mine came up and said, Larry, he didn't get his extension. I called my detailer in Washington, said I'd like that job, and I was given that job. I went over there. So that kind of really nailed my Navy career down, because I always wanted to be an engineer, but I never was one. But I worked with engineers, and I was treated like one. And I was part of an engineering team, and we wrote specifications, we reviewed contracts, we did testing from beginning to end. Putting a big system on a ship, making big ship, developing ship vaults. I was an FC rep at Norfolk Navy Shipyard to put the first system that we were working on another submarine. And that kind of got me into the business of knowing contractors. At the end of my narwhal tour at the Sound Lab, I had to go back to sea, but it determined that I couldn't go on a submarine because I had developed cataracts in one eye. So, but I was at this time on USS Orion, which was a tender in the Mediterranean. And they told me that I couldn't go down on a submarine, couldn't be exposed to ionizing radiation. So I was on Orion for about 2 weeks, and the ship came alongside, and the division officer said, Chief, I'd like you to go down and take a look at the periscope. You're having a problem. I said, I'll be glad to do that. I just would like to get a letter from the captain telling me to do that. He said, what do you mean? So I went through the story of the cataracts and everything. And the letter never happened, so I never went down on a submarine again. But I did work in the repair office with the repair officer and an assistant repair officer. And we had a crew of about 300 people. And I had a couple of divisions that I was division officer for. And I would work on evaluations of all those people for the various division officers that wrote them. It was a good career. But when I got out and we came back to New London, I walked off the Orion, came back to London, and 30 days later was retired. I was known in the contracting community in New London. And 2 days after I retired, I was working for a company that was a contractor with the Naval Underwater Systems Center. So I went back to doing virtually the same job that I did for 3.5 years before I went over there. And it was really a good career change, because I was in that job for almost 19 years working there. And it just, the whole thing, 20 years in the Navy and 20 years as a government contractor, all tied together, all because I selected the Navy when I was going to be drafted. And I'm glad that I did it.